Hi, Anne. I am so excited to have you on this call with me today. Um, I have been looking forward to this conversation for a while since you were recommended to me as a person. You have such an exciting, enticing profile, having spent 13 years in a global tech industry at some of the global tech giants like Yahoo and Google, and then quitting that kind of work life and lifestyle altogether, as you said, that you wanted to discover your life on your own terms rather than living or reliving the American dream and what that would look like. So you have spent the last 3 years looking into these parts of your life while working at a nonprofit. And yeah, I'm super, super excited to dive into the process of, you know, your career, how you navigated it, and what happened in the lead up to the burnout. How did you experience it personally, and where did it lead you right now? Because you're not only are experiencing and like uncovering, discovering lots of different aspects of your own journey, but also working with lots of other people and being an amazing inspiration. So I'm so excited to talk about all this. Welcome, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I think this is such a relevant topic right now, particularly this year and going forward. And I'm so grateful that that you have taken the audacious task of really breaking through, piercing through
Yes.
this. I feel like this is one of the biggest reasons for the mental health epidemic that we're experiencing across society right now. So yeah, I'm excited to share my insights and my experience.
Beautiful. Well, why don't we jump right in and look at you refer to it as a mental health epidemic. Wow, that's a really, really strong term. What makes you think it's even that? That's my first question.
Well, what I'll say is I can tell you from experience that that my burnout was actually after having explored it a little bit further and and have gone into this season of increasing my self-awareness. I've looked back in my life and I will be the first to admit that I was actually addicted to stress. And stress addiction is a real thing, especially in the Western world, where our sense of worth and validation comes from being successful. And as a matter of fact, I find that stress addiction is so normalized that we don't call it an addiction. It's a normal way of living. And when I was working for for corporate America, it was almost like I used to be afraid of boredom. Boredom was this like taboo thing. Like, you have nothing to do on a Saturday. Like, who are you?
Yeah.
So a lot of people really use stress as a coping mechanism, as a way to distract themselves from what's actually happening inside. And for me in particular, stress addiction was my way of escaping some of the experiences, the emotional and inner experiences that I was having inside, and blaming it on work. But I was also tossing myself into work so that I didn't have to feel all of these things that I was feeling inside. And so the reason why I believe that this is a cause for the mental health epidemic is because, mental health is a really complicated thing, but for me, mental health is our inability as a society to understand, manage, and appropriately and healthily process our emotions. I call this, in my line of work right now and in my line of interest, I call this the lost art and science of being human, right? Like, we, as a world, and within the education system, we basically are prepared to take on jobs, but nobody prepares us for life. So this kind of goes into why I have been working for the Contentment Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization that, you know, helps teachers and students essentially understand, manage, and process their life experiences and emotions. Such an
Beautiful.
integral part of what this world needs right now.
Absolutely. Amazing. Thank you so much. You, yeah, I mean, I think you hit it right there, like with the addiction to stress and what that looks like. I'm very curious about actually like unpacking this a little bit further even, and maybe looking at your experience pre-burnout, because that has been one of my findings too. Like lots of people actually don't even realize that they are in a lead up to a burnout, or that they are burning out, until their body really puts them in a bed or a hospital bed in worst cases. So yeah, like I guess burnout is typically kind of considered to be an outcome of too much stress in a workplace. Like that is the typical sort of, way of defining it. But you have already kind of touched on some of the points where you have internalized that process and what burnout actually was inside you. What were you avoiding? What were you denying? So could you talk to me a little bit more about the workplace itself and like what your life looked like, and what were maybe some of the unhealthy, unhelpful mechanisms that you had around yourself that actually led you to the burnout, like that life before? Yeah, talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, so I think it will be helpful for me to just set the context around the fact that I had a pretty typical immigrant upbringing. You know, my mom brought us to the US when I was 11 years old, and she was a single mom, you know, hoping to realize the gifts of the American dream. And so as a product of an immigrant upbringing, for me, I was already signing up for the blueprint of the American dream. This was kind of planted into me already.
Right.
Hard work, success, and making sure that my parents, were proud of me, that their sacrifices were well paid off. All of these things that are already ingrained and implanted into to people that buy into that American dream. And I will tell you that, I think as a society, for me in particular, I think we all go through many childhood experiences and many experiences that, that kind of create trauma inside of us.
Yeah.
Right. And to me, I guess like I also just want to be careful in not vilifying the American dream. I find that sometimes I sound like I'm vilifying the American dream, but the American dream served a very powerful purpose for me in terms of where I am today. So I don't want to vilify it, in as much as want to put a spotlight on being a part of corporate America and not experiencing burnout. Those two things I find are oftentimes conflated.
Right.
That in order to be successful, you have to buy into this idea of a stressful life, right? And so when we have these belief systems that in order to be successful, you have to compromise your health, your mental health, your physical health, and you have to only sleep 4 hours. These are trends that are really, really detrimental and harmful for society, quite frankly. Right. So for me, what I want to do is to basically disentangle this idea that in order to be successful, we have to buy into being addicted to stress. And nobody's going to say, oh, I'm addicted to stress. Nobody's, because it's kind of like, body related image issues for women, right? Like, I find that we all, as a demographic, as women, we all suffer from it to some degree. But it's so normalized that nobody actually says, "Oh, I'm addicted to to looking good." Like, it's not, but it's there and it's a problem.
Yeah.
So what I want to be able to do is just help people understand that being in corporate America doesn't mean that you have to experience stress, but just understanding, going through, for me, as I look back in my life, knowing what I know now, I could survive corporate America with a lot more self-awareness, and with the habits that I have formed, I know that I can thrive both as a successful professional, but also as a successful human.
Beautiful.
You know, so it's not about leaving corporate America. It's about going on a self-aware, not even self-development, I would say self-awareness journey.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So awareness is everything in this
Self-awareness,
case. Yes.
awareness, consciousness is everything.
Beautiful.
What I believe is wrong with our society right now, if you peel back all of the layers, is that there's a widespread unconsciousness epidemic.
Yeah.
People are stuck in their patterns, and
Yeah.
you know, when we can't see our own patterns, then we lose out on the opportunity to design our experiences and actually take care of ourselves. So I don't know if I answered your question. I can't even remember what the question was, but
Amazing. That means it was a good question. You got into your flow. I love that. I will remind you of an element of that question that I would still like to look at for sure.
Okay.
But yeah, I just wanted to add to what you were explaining so beautifully, and thank you so much for decoupling, you know, the idea of living a beautiful life in America and then actually doing it in an aware way, so you don't have to necessarily have the association with the stress. It's possible. So yeah, thank you for expressing that. I think that's really important to say, because I also went through the process of blaming the system, blaming, you know, my parents, blaming my educators, blaming my employers, until I realized that I need to get out of this like victim mode, and the self-awareness is about taking responsibility and ownership. So that's, I think what you express is like, that's the thing about, you know, how we can move forward with this. So just wanted to really honor that, and yeah, appreciate that. Thank you.
You encapsulated that really, really beautifully.
Yeah, it's so important. So okay, so yeah, what I'm really interested in is like, I think people do relate to the experience, also the experience of like, what do we mean by not being conscious? What do we mean by not being fully aware? Because you know, we all go through these stages in our lives when that's how we live our life, because all of these things are so strong. Like, these things get sort of imprinted in us throughout our childhood, but also we take on so much stuff from our, you know, carers and yeah, the family and the society and even ancestors. Like, those things are in us, and it's really hard to kind of like crack that shell and realize that, hey, this is not me, it's actually someone else responding right now. So I think people do relate to that experience of like, could you give us a couple of examples of what that life before looked like to you when you were working in these big companies and you were addicted to stress? Like, what were you doing? What were some of the examples? What felt good at that time?
I'll say to you that my goals were much different. I talk a lot about redefining success, because when you are, and this is why I related back to being an immigrant, because when you're an immigrant, you have sort of this blueprint that you're designed or you're expected to follow, and I follow that exact blueprint, and dare I say, I got really good at it. Got into an amazing, you know, the number one public university in the nation. Got into, you know, one of the most prolific companies to work for, Google, and eventually like went all the way to the top. And that was an intentional goal. I wanted to make my mom happy, but that came at an expense of honoring my own true North Star. I felt like there was a part of me that needed to feel validated through these measures. You know, I felt like the only way that I could feel worthy was to be able to amass all of these accolades, you know, to give my mom exactly what I felt that she deserved. And, you know, and I'd say that I suffered deeply. And I think a lot, and I would argue like most people are unconscious about this, but there's a lot of people that suffer from unworthiness patterns of unworthiness. And it's not, this is not a strike on people. This is how the world goes around. You know, hey, you're not worthy, but if you buy this thing, then you're whole, right? Like consumerism is anchored in this notion of unworthiness. And for me, you know, I'm one of the lucky ones because I was able to go all the way up to the top, you know, in ways that I never thought I would be able to at the age that I was. And I got there and felt exorbitantly empty. I was like, what's the point of all of this? What is the point of all of this? And I'll tell you, V, that I was I still am, but I was at the time practicing Christianity like you wouldn't believe it. Like I had deep faith in God, and you know, God brought me to a place where I was finally able to look at myself in the mirror. I remember this one moment when I was in New York and I had just come back from a day of shopping. Shopping was my coping mechanism. I lived literally a block away from Soho at the heart of Tribeca. So that coping mechanism was so accessible to me. And I got home and just did another round of coping with the emptiness that I was feeling inside. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I saw this woman that just aged beyond her years. I saw like just someone who looked just dreadfully unhappy. And I was like, who is this person? On the outside, I had all the trinkets and jewels and gadgets that you could possibly think of that could, you know, that look like someone, you know, that depicted the perfect Instagram lifestyle. Right. But on the inside, there was a light that was dying. And there was a thought, there was something that I rejected from that point forward that changed everything for me. And that was, if God was truly real, he would not want me to suffer like this. If God was truly real, because in the Christian faith, I find that suffering is normalized, and I just reject that truth now. I just reject that. And when I said, no, God is love, you know, there's a scripture in the Bible, and that's the only truth for me that felt resonant. And I just rejected this notion that if God is love, then why would he want me to suffer? And that was the moment where, when I began to reject that notion, everything started to open up for me. Other possible insights and ideas started to unfold. And this is what I mean when I say, sometimes even with the best of intentions, we can be living inside of unconscious patterns, like belief systems that are no longer serving us. Like being part of being a Christian means that I have to suffer. Right. That keeps us inside of an unconscious pattern that is not serving us. Absolutely. And so being open, and finally, like just like this one question that I was able to say, nope, I'm not accepting that belief system anymore. It opened up a whole new world for me to experience God in the most extraordinary ways. But I had to be a willing participant in that journey.
Beautiful. Oh, that's so true. That's so true. And it speaks also to that first point you were making about, you know, normalizing stress. And for me, like when I look back, I come from a culture that's very hard work orientated. And we even have sayings, you know, without hard work, you won't get any cake. That's like one of our sayings. It's basically like you gotta go through the struggle to get the reward. if you are in pleasure or joy or play or fun, it's not worth it. It's like, that's not serious, that's not life, that's just for kids, right? So that is another huge myth that's there. And like, in terms of religions, these things are, it's really good to discern, just to go in and like see what is your truth. And I love that story that you're talking about, with like having this idea of like having the God there, and then changing that whole understanding of what that really means, because God really just represents your attitude to life, and your shift from this like, I am the sufferer, towards, you said it, active participant, I'm the creator. It's such a beautiful, like, that's how you see yourself, that's how you see the God, that's how you see everything around you. Really, really shifts everything. So yeah,
and
yeah, go ahead.
I'll tell you, V, that and I'm actually about to launch my YouTube channel around this, a
Awesome.
rebranded
Oh
YouTube
yeah.
channel, because I'm not on social media now, and I want to focus
Mm.
my attention on building my YouTube channel. But this whole idea that around Christ beyond borders,
Mm.
because I've deepened my relationship with Christ, which is the only thing that felt right for me. The
Mm.
only thing that I felt like I could, I could pack in my suitcase and take with me wherever I went. And for me, like, that transition from corporate America was really an answer to a calling that God had created, had seeded in me, but I was too afraid to jump into the unknown. So it took me
Mm.
a while to finally go into the unknown. But I will tell you that despite the fact that I've largely left the church as an institution, right?
Mm.
One thing that I took with me was Christ.
Right.
And one of the things that I realized was that Christ is just he extends beyond religion. He extends beyond any boxes that we want to put him inside of. He exists
Mm.
in love. He exists in grace. He exists in beauty, and he exists in pleasure. We get to experience the God within. And so my mission, and I'll tell you that my mission is becoming more and more clear, is that I want to serve as a
Mm.
powerful mirror for people to experience the beauty and light that they already have inside. And that
Mm.
is God within.
Beautiful.
We all have God within. He's
Yes.
not someone that there's no, like, to me, if we can experience beauty in this conversation, or if we can experience
Mm.
beauty in just literally doing something, that is how we get to honor and
Mm.
experience God within.
Mm.
So knocking down the belief that we are here to suffer, fully embracing that we are here on earth to experience beauty and light and grace. And that
Mm.
is how we get to connect with God.
Yeah, I sign up for that. Definitely. Sounds so much better than signing up for suffering.
It sounds fun, honestly.
Yeah, it sounds like something I want to be a part of. And that doesn't mean that we don't get to experience pain. Like, everything is a part of that. But yeah, the suffering feels like a permanent state to be in, and it feels really disempowering. So yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Thank you for expressing this. This is like, hell yeah. Yeah,
Yes. Let's go
amazing.
on this journey together. Yes.
Yeah, it's happening. It's happening. Okay, so right. What did the burnout look like to you? Like, what was that tipping point? That's what I'm always really curious about. Like, when did you feel that, you couldn't take anymore, or was there a wake up call? What did that look
Yeah.
like to you?
So I will tell you that I took on a very disempowering victim reality, because I actually, so when I was working at Yahoo, we were about to get acquired by Verizon. And as a matter of fact, I actually ended up forfeiting millions of dollars, leaving millions of dollars on the table,
Mm.
because I didn't wait for the closing of the sale. And I had a huge package waiting for me, but I just couldn't stand it anymore. in my mind, I was like, Yahoo was the reason why I was unhappy. So I'm going to leave Yahoo and I'm going to start my life in New York, live out my Sex in the City lifestyle that I've always dreamt of, take on, you know, another job and try, you know, like now I'm really going to be happy. I get to New York, had this amazing job that, you know, it was just an amazing job. I had an opportunity to build an organization from the ground up, was surrounded by, you know, by lots of abundance, friends. But then 6 months into it, I kind of realized, I was like, holy crap, I'm chasing my own tail, you know, and I had this like, like I had this like terror. It was a moment of fear that just washed over me. And I asked myself, if it's not San Francisco, if it's not New York, then where? It's not San Francisco, if it's not New York, then where? Where is this happiness that the American dream has promised me since the day that I stepped foot on US soil? Where is it? I felt duped. I felt like this is bullshit. Like, what the hell is this? I feel like I'm chasing my own tail. And I will tell you that, you know, that when I finally gave up, I said, okay, I'm going to take 6 months off and I'm going to travel the world. I landed in Bali and in this like luscious place. For sure, this is where I'm going to find my peace. For sure, this is where I'm going to. But you know what, V? What happens is you take all your baggage with you.
Yep.
You can't escape what is happening inside. And that's when I realized that, to me, I had spent my whole life taking on the victim role, blaming everything around me, my work, my colleagues, my boss, my parents, it's not New York, okay, it's this and that. And I was like, oh my God, like Bali is too. Bali's stressful. But actually the stress was happening inside of me. This is why I say, like, the stress addiction, there is an addiction to stress that needs to get healed. Yeah. And so that's when I started to finally, so I guess like the short answer to your question is that that burnout is not a byproduct of what's actually happening in our external world. Our external world is a byproduct of what's actually happening inside. So the work has to happen inside.
Beautiful.
We can shift around our external world all we want. We can move to Bali or the Himalayan mountains or whatever, but we can't escape this. Cannot. This is where this is the root of the burnout.
Goosebumps. Thank you. You hit it. Yeah. Yeah. So,
you know,
so what did you do? What did you do? You realized, hey, this is all inside me. The same story is replaying itself, even though I'm in the most blissed out place in the world. What are you gonna do now?
Yeah, which is it's you start to you cry a lot, and you start to process, and you stop pointing the finger, and you start allowing people to, so you stop pointing the finger and instead allowing people to serve as a powerful mirror of what's happening inside of you. You start to deal with your triggers, your emotional triggers, as not something that you distract yourself from or you blame other people for it. You start to allow that to be a friend for healing, to be the point at which you come to terms with yourself and say, this is happening all inside of me. There's a 3 to 4 year old little girl that is confused, that didn't get the direction that she had hoped for, you know, when she was younger. And you need to start inner parenting, and you need to start allowing unprocessed, undigested emotions to finally get released from your body. I started, I'm just going to own this, I started to look at my own patterns and start to, you know, to do what I felt, you know, it's a courageous journey. And you know this because you've lived in Bali for quite some time. It's probably the most courageous journey that you're going to embark on, because it's easier to blame other people and acquire lots of money and all of this stuff than to actually deal with all of this inner tension that's happening inside of you. And for me, the last 3 years has been about learning the tools, understanding, this is what I call the lost art and science of being human. Understanding the science behind my brain, how I process things, looking into what ancient wisdoms, talks about emotions, working for this nonprofit so that I can not just learn the tools, but share those tools with billion, at some point we want to be able to impact over 1 billion, people within a single generation, and do the work, do the inner work, be still enough to allow whatever is meant to emerge. And for the first, when I was here in Bali, I was like, wow, like crying didn't feel scary anymore. Triggers became this exciting moment where I would be like, oh, trigger, yes, let's deal with it. Okay, where did that come from? 3 or 4 year old little girl. Okay, come here. Let me give you a hug. It's okay. We're okay now. It's okay. We're okay now. So going on that journey of finding love within, and also deepening my faith. Deepening my faith has been a big journey, and discovering God outside of the box.
I love that expression.
It's Christ beyond borders. So that's what it is. When we have the tools to understand our God-given birthright, to and see emotions as a normal part of being human, and rather than vilifying it or trying to distract ourselves from it or trying to hold on to it, and we allow that energy to simply pass, come and go, the freedom that comes with that kind of life.
Yes. Beautiful. Thank you for already diving into some of the techniques and useful things that you're using. I wanted to actually ask you about this in more detail, if there are any particular modalities or things that you have used in your journey or are currently using maybe regularly that are helping you. You have outlined it really beautifully, like what are the different aspects of your inner work, inner play, I would say. I like the word play.
Okay.
And it sounds like it. Yeah. So is there anything, like, because there's obviously so much available to us, so many amazing things, what's been really useful for you on this journey?
So I will say that everybody is on their own respective journey. So I find that it's really important for people to not just take anyone's word for anything, quite frankly, but to take what resonates, to throw away what doesn't, but then to use that as a seed to explore further, right? Like what I want is for people to feel empowered to take matters into their own hands. And I think that this is actually what's so important with coaching, right? Like you don't want to create a dependence. So my invitation for people is to learn, to continue to learn, and then apply what resonates. So for me, the part that I think what really started to really shift for me is one, to know that emotion is simply energy in motion. Oftentimes, when we believe that we are the emotion, we can't possibly just allow that emotion to come and go. And to me, I don't even try to judge emotions. Like when I feel an emotion surfacing, I'm like, energy, where does it show up in my body? Take away the thoughts, because thoughts fuel the emotion, and just breathe through it. Your breath is your friend, right? Like for me, I just close my eyes and I feel, I tend to look for where the emotion, the energy sits in my body. And I can even visualize what it looks like, and just belly breathing. I'm willing to let this go. It's just energy that's trying to move through. When we hold on to an emotion or we try to distract ourselves from the emotion, that energy gets stuck in our body. It creates disharmony, and it eventually manifests itself as a physical ailment.
Definitely.
Right? So triggers are actually our friends. It is our body's way of saying, please help. There is an energy that's not serving you anymore that I need you to pass through, right? Like that trigger is there to as a friendly reminder from our body to release that emotion. So to me, just that basic, like emotions are just energy. That to me has been a game changer, right? And for me, like, go embark on a self-awareness journey. Like, I say this because we cannot possibly empower ourselves if we are not willing to look at and own up and have authority over our own experiences.
Yeah, definitely.
We need to start taking ownership and authority. I'd say ownership and authority, because if we continue to blame other people for the way that we feel, we cannot possibly change the way that we feel. We will always leave it up. It is going to be the most disempowering experience or disempowering thing that you can do for yourself.
Yeah.
Is to continue to blame other people. So that would be one. For me, mindfulness, I know everybody talks about this, but mindfulness to me is focus training. So yes, it can help you relax and all this thing, but if you're not actually training your focus, then you're missing out on the opportunity to slow down the chatter in your mind and experience peace and calm. So a lot of people are into guided meditation, and they are powerful, right? But also couple that with just breathing, like breathing exercises, like silent meditation, and just like training your mind to just focus on one thing. If we can train our mind to focus on one thing, we can manifest anything that we want. The reason why manifestation is difficult for people is because they can't keep their focus on that one thing that they want to manifest, right? So focus training, like, see mindfulness as a way to train your focus. And then finally, the last thing that I just want to say around emotions is that we can train emotions. So most people are living inside of emotional habits. So we wake up in the morning, we're already feeling the same exact way every single day. Dr. Jonas Spencer has this powerful research that he does, like, by the age of 35, we're already on autopilot 95% of the time.
Yeah.
So emotions are just habits. So when we are experiencing stress or fear or grief or sadness or anger or all of these low vibration emotions, it's just because our body, our nervous system we've trained it to feel that way.
Yeah.
So as with anything, you can train joy, you can train gratitude, you can train happiness, we can train contentment, right? So it's all just training. I see that everything is training.
How cool is that, right? It's actually pretty simple. It is, and it isn't.
It is simple.
Yeah.
It is, if you understand the techniques behind it, which is a combination of mindfulness and also applying, like, even asking powerful questions. What would it look like what would it look like if in this moment I were to I were to live inside of abundance? Any situation you find yourself in, right? What would it look like? Or what would it feel like? What would it look like if I were to live inside of confidence right now? Your body and your psyche will know what to do. Oh yeah, that's right. Pop back your shoulders. Oh yeah, that's right. Speak a little bit louder, right? There's ways that our body is sophisticated, and it's quite powerful and smart.
Yeah.
But we have to call it in. So even just disrupting it with that one question could be really powerful. So that's how you apply it in your day-to-day experience. That's
so cool. Love it. Thank you so much. Yeah, really, really resonates. And I love Joe. I just call him Joe's work. Dr. Jonas Spencer. Yeah, it's really, really cool. I think that is a start of one revolution in the ways that we approach ourselves and yeah, like the understanding of our psyche and, you know, what the power, like I'm always just excited about the fact that we can change, we can do it. And if you are persistent and, you know, you're willing to go there and you do it consistently, then you see the benefits of it. And it's quite fascinating. Like, I know that, you know, sometimes it's hard to believe. Like, for example, he talks about ways to like heal pretty heavy diseases. And but I have been experimenting with some of this really powerful stuff, and if I haven't had the proof in my own body, I would not believe it. But it's like incredible how you can turn pain into pleasure. How can you cure high blood pressure and like all of these things? Like, believing that something is genetic, that something has always been there and is that way and it's unchangeable, it's bullshit. It's like
Yeah.
all of this stuff that you're talking about is like really just relearning. So yeah, that's amazing.
And I'll tell you, V, that it's important, and this is going to be part of my platform going forward,
mm,
is that these are like God-given mechanisms. Like
mm,
this is our birthright to know
mm,
that there is. So to me, it's not about, they're not, because there's a lot of content out there right now. It's like, oh, it's Jesus versus New Age religion. And I'm like,
mm,
actually, no, that's not my experience, yo. Like,
mm,
actually learning the mechanics behind epigenetics and neuroscience and quantum physics, those are just tools that allow me to understand, wow, like what God has done to really build in
mm,
these powerful tools that are already it's like default systems inside of us,
yeah, yeah,
right? So they go hand in hand. So
mm,
it's not like, you know, like you just believe in science or you just believe in these. No, actually they go hand in hand. They're both,
mm,
these are like God-given mechanisms already built inside of us, where we can manifest, you know, our desires. And really what it really boils down to is, you know, are we manifesting things that are, you know, that the spirit is telling us, or is it coming from an egoic place? That's the work, in my opinion,
mm,
right? Like,
mm,
is it, are we disempowering our ego in service of hearing God more? That to me is the work. But in terms
mm,
of these like mechanisms, yeah, they're to me, they're God-given birthright.
yeah, yeah. I think that's a really good point to make too. Like, we have this beautiful ability, which is, it feels like superpower, but there's a reason why you can't just manifest a Ferrari. Like, it's not really about like saying, hey, I'm gonna manifest this and puff, it's there. It's, yeah, it totally is about really embodying and feeling that vibration in your body, and
That's
what
correct.
comes to you as a result of that. Like, that's where the change really happens. Like, you talked about this as, you know, the external environment, which just mirrors, so the same way these opportunities come in.
That's
Yeah,
correct. It's just
so
energy.
beautiful.
That's like, you have to
mm.
learn. We're, and this is like what God
Mm.
has endowed to us. We just don't know how to use it, right? So
Right.
it's all just energy, just like being able to work with energy.
mm.
So
Epic. Amazing. Thank you. I have one last question for you. It's kind of like a double question before we go, because this has all, like, this whole conversation has been packed with so many useful tips. And, you know, I think you brought a lot of awareness into this question of what burnout really is. Like, this whole conversation to me sounds very different from how the World Health Organization just defined it. Actually, burnout made it to the official um, like diagnosis last year. So it's up there, and it's just defined by 3 symptoms, which feels extremely simplistic. You're talking here about a holistic approach, you know, combining science and spirituality, going deeper, self-inquiry, all of that. So that's beautiful.
mhm.
What I feel would serve really well as an ending for this conversation is your your message to people. I would put people into 2 groups who are, in a way, you know, coming into the experience of burnout. um, what would be your message to people who are still kind of living in this, you know, addiction of stress, as you defined it, this state? Like, if you feel into yourself back then, what that felt like when people don't even feel like there is anything wrong and they just, you know, they kind of just, they're loving it. What would be the message for those people? And then the other group of people I would define as people who are already starting to feel the pain, and, you know, perhaps some frustration or anger, even some physical symptoms, but they are scared to do things differently. They feel like they don't really have a control. They don't really have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
What would be the message,
Yeah.
like, if you feel into these two sort of categories?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I would say, well, I would say what your intuition is already telling you, go do that.
Mm. Mm.
I find that we ignore that calling. We ignore the signs. We ignore that inner voice. Oftentimes the voice is already there. We allow our fear to we allow our fear to keep us from our destined greatness. And I think that everybody is and I don't want this to be prescriptive, because everybody is on a very different trajectory, but we oftentimes know, if we just took a pause and just listened, really listened to that inner voice inside of us in terms of what that next step needs to look like, that's go follow that. Follow that. Yeah, because again, like, I'm here to help people experience the light that is already within them. We all have that light. God is within us, communicating to us. Are we listening? Are we going to do what it takes to actually get better? And you know, whatever that small step is, whether it's reaching out to someone, or going on Google and searching for other options, or going on YouTube, or asking for help, whatever it is, go do that. That is how you start. It doesn't need to be as big of a leap as what I did. It just needs to be a small step, and you start to tippy toe on like towards the right path, and it will lead you to your destined freedom. I really believe that. But we have to be honest with ourselves about what's really wrong, and nobody's going to be able to tell us what is wrong. This is like a very personal and deep introspective experience for all of us. We can allow people to tell us what is the next step, but oftentimes, I will tell you, 100% of the time, this is where it comes from.
Yeah,
it really does.
For sure.
It really does.
Thank
you. You know, so just like as a last thing that I just want to say, and when I said to you that I rejected this idea that I have learned my whole life, that, you know, that if I were to love God, then that means that I'd have to be willing to suffer my whole life. When I rejected that notion, within 1 week, kid you not, 1 week, I met a coach randomly. I was talking to someone at a restaurant, and he was right there listening to my question, or listening to my story, just eavesdropping. And right before I left, he said to me, I feel called to introduce myself. I'm TJ. You know, would love to have coffee. And he's actually the one who allowed me to bulletproof my decision to leave corporate America.
Beautiful.
And but that intention, to say like, surrender, I surrender, God, I surrender to you. Help me, help illuminate my next path. And once we listen to that inner voice, the next path, the next step will be illuminated until God starts to reveal to you more and more.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's so powerful. Like just voicing the truth, voicing what you're feeling, and being witness in that is huge. So yeah, if I was to sum it up for that process that you are describing right now, creating space in silence where you can meet yourself. And I think that's such a powerful advice, even for people who think everything is fine, because we all need this every now and then. So it's always super helpful. And then following the intuition, that feeling inside, saying those words, saying it out loud for yourself, and then saying it out there, like being witnessed, and then following whatever that brings into your life and taking little steps towards that. It sort of like opens up and unravels, because it doesn't have to be a big jump into something, right? As you said, like moving to another country or changing a job or leaving a family or things like that. It can really just start quite small. And I think that's what most people are kind of afraid of, that, oh, I'm so demotivated and frustrated with my current life. Does that mean everything needs to change? It might eventually, maybe in 5 or 10 years, but it is a process of unlearning and relearning, which can be quite small. So yeah, so powerful.
Yeah, it oftentimes starts with the small steps. Honestly, it's always the small steps end up becoming the big step.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
It's like I find that the fear of the unknown is so scary for people. You don't need to leave. Like sometimes you're asked to leave, but it's like just dipping your toe. Dipping your toe into the unknown.
Yeah. And there will always be people to support you, because once you start opening yourself to that idea, help will come. It's just how it is, always.
That's energy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's energy. So when you call it in, the help, like I said to you, my friend TJ, I could not have made this decision to make that, to take that leap without him. And he came literally 5 days after I declared it. I was like, this is not true. It can't be true.
Wow. That's super powerful. Amazing. Yeah. Well, I'm so glad to be witnessing you here in this beautiful life that you built for yourself. And thank you for sharing your journey. And, for being the light for a lot of other people now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was fun.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. I was just going to ask if there's anything else that you would want to kind of express, a question that I haven't asked and you would like me to ask. If there's anything that feels like wants to be said.
No, I feel like everything that I wanted to share got expressed. I mean, honestly, like I'm excited about this new YouTube channel that I'm forming. I'm calling it The Splendor of Unconventional Living, which
beautiful.
is an anagram for soul. So soul, splendor of unconventional living. And what I really want for people is to experience is to demystify and to make it less scary to go into unknown territory. And oftentimes God will meet us. Not oftentimes. What my experience has been is that I've been able to witness God and witness Him do extraordinary work in my life when I was willing to go down the unconventional route. So it's very difficult for God to work within the confines or the construct that we create within our lives. If you want to experience God, we have to be willing to go outside of the box. And for me, I want to take away the fear of going into unknown territory.
Beautiful. Thank you for mentioning that, and this way people will know where to find you as well. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
It feels like our paths are so aligned and we'll continue having even more conversations. This is really cool.
Yeah.
Everything is expansive, and this, feels like next year is going to be really, really amazing for this after everything that we've
Yeah.
experienced this year.
And
Beautiful.
V, I mean, I salute you for tackling this. This is what humanity needs. You
Thank
know,
you.
for people to focus, to zero in on, you know, what this could mean and how we can start to heal the planet.
Mm.
Because when we can't operate at our best when we're burnt out anyway.
Mm.
So and more than ever, our world needs people to operate
Yeah.
on their best. So
Yeah,
yeah.
we need our uniqueness, not a copy paste, way of living. So
That's correct.
I love how you talked about the American dream, and it can mean different things for different people, and that's how it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish we were able to do this in person. That would have been
Yeah,
exciting, but this will do for now. I'm grateful for Zoom.
me too. Thank you so much for jumping on, and I hope that we'll meet soon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Mm.